Well, good morning and welcome to the Lighthouse Family Church. We're so pleased that you could be with us today, and we're going to have a great time together. We've got some worship from Bryony and the team coming up, followed by a word from Heather on what it means to be a true disciple. And then, of course, we've got Debs' dynamic demo at the end of the meeting, where she'll be looking into the subject of multiplication today. I wanted to start off today, though, by making mention to something that's at the very forefront of our news at the moment, the death of George Floyd and the subsequent protests that have been going on around the world. I think it's something that has moved many of our hearts and has made us really dig deep and ask ourselves some serious questions about racism in our society. And we've made one or two resources available to you on our Lighthouse Facebook page if you want to have a look at them. There's a really good interview with T.D. Jakes on why this is so important and why it is really important for the church not to stay silent at this time. We really believe this is not a political issue, but this is a human rights issue, and this is exactly what the church should be standing up and speaking out about. So if you get some time, go on there and have a look at that and some of the other resources that we've put up there. But we want to kick off the meeting now, and we've got a couple of things. For those who were watching last week, you may have noticed that Heather announced an item on our programme that didn't quite happen. We've got a word of testimony from Alistair and Stephanie, who are from Eastbourne, and they've connected with us over the last few months. They've been to D22 once, but have really connected on our online meetings and have an intention to move over this way. So we'd like to hear from them so that you can know who they are and perhaps pray for them as they put their house on the market and begin to move down here. So we've also got some good news, and I think we'll probably kick off with that from Sheila.
This week, with the help of Diane, I led my first sozo via Zoom, and despite the technological challenges, the lady that we ministered to reported great breakthrough as we managed to reach some root issues to relationship difficulties she'd been experiencing for years.
Hello, we're Alistair and Steph. My background is that I started working with the post office as an apprentice many years ago in telephone exchanges. I spent about 4 years in Saudi Arabia working for the telephone company there, and when I came back I was involved with electronics and software. I've been in software all my life. I finished up working for Ericsson in the mobile phone industry, and I took early retirement, and that was when we were able to move to Eastbourne.
I've worked in PA work, secretarial work. I've worked in a children's home, but I trained, and I'm now a Pilates instructor, a nutrition and weight loss advisor, and a behaviour change coach. So I've been running classes for a while before we moved to Eastbourne, and since we've been in Eastbourne I've run some classes. Also worked in a local college while we've been here, which I really enjoyed, working with older children as a behaviour mentor.
So we've been married for nearly 27 years. I enjoy playing a bit of bass guitar, drive a little sports car, and I have a drone which I'm learning to fly. I've been a Christian for about 32 years.
I've been a Christian for about 36 years, and we met at a Pentecostal church where we got married.
So we plan on moving to Poole so we can be nearer to our daughter and our beautiful granddaughter. So our house is currently on the market, and we're hoping to be able to get moving now the housing market has finally opened up. So we've been a bit delayed, but we hope to be moving soon.
So because it's difficult for us to get to Poole and then look around at houses and come back in the same day, we're planning to sell our house and then move into our touring caravan and stay there while we look around. So hopefully it will speed things up for us.
So we're looking to make some friends. in Poole and have a bit of fun.
For laugh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. That's us.
Thank you for asking.
Bye.
Bye.
Born to the darkness I was, rejected and cut off from hope. I couldn't see his love for me. They said he's not who he seems. Don't get your hopes up for him. I fell away and I saw his face. My heart burst to life. I saw delight in his eyes when he looked at me. My whole world's on fire, alive in the presence that burns inside of me. Now I know whose I am, ever I'll stand on your truth. I believe, 'cause I was blind, but now I see. To daylight for me. Joy is the song that I sing. All of my days fill with your praise. All of my days I fill with your praise. My heart bursts to life. I saw delight in his eyes when he looked at me. My whole world's on fire, alive in the presence of inside of me. Now I know whose I am. Wherever I stand on the truth, I believe, 'cause I was blind, but now I see. My heart burst to life. I saw delight in his eyes when he looked at me. My whole world's on fire, alive in the presence of earth inside of me. Now I know whose I am. Whenever I stand on the truth, I believe, 'cause I was blind, but now I see. No one could ever take my song away. My eyes were opened and I saw his face. No one could ever take away my faith. My life was changed the day that Jesus came. No one could ever take my song away. My eyes were opened and I saw his face. No one could ever take away my faith. My life was changed the day that Jesus came. My heart burst to life. I saw delight in his eyes when he looked at me. My whole world's on fire, alive in the presence that burns inside of me. Now I know whose I am. Wherever I stand on the truth, I believe, 'cause I was blind, and now I see. My heart burst to life. I saw delight in his eyes when he looked at me. My whole world's on fire, alive in the presence that burns inside of me. Now I know whose I am. Wherever I stand on the truth, I believe, 'cause I was blind, but now I see. I was blind, your presence fill our praise, fill our praise. Come and let your presence fill this place. Come and let your presence fill our praise, fill our praise. Come and let your presence fill our place. For you are the one we want to see. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we sing. For you are the one we want to meet. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we sing. We have come to bring you highest praise, highest praise. We have come to love you in this place. We have come to give you highest praise, highest praise. We have come to love you in this place. For you are the one we want to meet. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we sing.
That you sing.
For you are the one we want to meet. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we bring. It's all for you. Here we are, here we are. It's all for you. Here we are, here we are. It's all for you. Here we are, here we are. It's all for you. Here we are, here we
Changes everything.
Here we are.
are the one we want to meet. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we sing. For you are the one we want to meet. Jesus, shine through all the praises that we sing. We have come to give you highest praise, highest praise. We have come to love you in this place. We have come to give you highest praise, highest praise. We have come to love you in this place.
Love you in this place.
One belongs to me. Jesus shine through. All the praises that I sing. There's nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Your presence, I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of loves, when my heart becomes free and the shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. I've nothing worth more that will ever come close. Nothing can compare. You're our living hope. Your presence, Lord.
I've tasted and seen of the sweetest of love,
Where my heart becomes free and the shame is undone. Your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere.
your
your presence,
Lord.
let us become more aware of your presence.
Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your goodness. Let us become more aware of your presence. Let us experience the glory of your Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord. Holy Spirit, you are welcome here. Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord.
Spirit, you are welcome here.
Come flood this place and fill the atmosphere. Your glory, God, is what our hearts long for. To be overcome by your presence, Lord.
Good morning. This month we're going to be exploring what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. So I guess a good place to start is to understand what that word disciple actually means, because it's not a word that is commonly used these days. Back in Jesus' day, it meant someone who was a follower, a pupil, student, or something like an apprentice to someone, or a devotee of Jesus. In the Gospels, we read that Jesus chose his disciples, and he did that by speaking to them and inviting them to follow him. The invitation always came with a challenge, however, to go where he went, to do as he did, and to stick close even when the going got tough. In some instances, people who'd been enamoured by Jesus and by the wonderful miracles that he did, they approached him. They hung around and wanted to become part of what was happening. But not all ended up becoming his followers or his disciples. For example, we read in the Gospels about a rich young ruler who came and really wanted to be part of it. And Jesus threw him a challenge, a personal challenge. And this rich young ruler's inability to find his way clear to carry out something Jesus was asking him to do meant that he did not go on to become a disciple. There's another example of the one who wanted first to go and bury his father. And from these examples we can see that a disciple of Jesus is one who is ready to pay the price, to count the cost of putting Jesus first, and not to put it off, but to do it now. Now, this whole issue of cost used to puzzle me somewhat, because I used to think, well, isn't salvation free? Isn't it a gift of grace that's free? Doesn't the Bible say, to all who are thirsty, I will give the free gift of the water of life? You see, I'd heard and understood the invitation of Jesus, but Jesus also said, if any man would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross and follow me. This is the challenge of following him. I've had to learn that, like so many truths that Jesus taught, there is a tension between two seemingly opposite things. There are two sides to the coin of discipleship. And I've learned through experience now that to follow Jesus has a cost. Let's think of some biblical examples. Thinking of Peter. Jesus called Peter to be his disciple. And up till that moment, Peter had been a fisherman. He had nets, he had a boat, he had a career, he had a means of earning a living, and that was his life. But when Jesus called him to be his disciple, the gospel records that Peter left his nets, left his boat, left that lifestyle in order to follow Jesus as they trailed for 3 years round Israel, round Judea, serving Jesus, learning from Jesus. He made everything he had at Jesus's disposal. Then we've got the example of Saul, later known as Poole, who had that marvellous salvation experience on the road to Damascus. But there was certainly a cost to him to become a disciple, an apostle, as we read that his career change went from being chief persecutor of the church to being imprisoned himself for years in chains for the sake of the gospel, for following Jesus. And then in the example of the early church, in the book of Acts, we read that those first disciples, whenever they noticed a need amongst themselves, would perhaps sell something that they had in order to take care of another. So there was a cost to them to be and remain disciples. And history is littered with examples of this. St. Francis, who left behind the privilege of his wealthy family background, right up to modern day disciples who are paying a price. I'm thinking now of our dear friend Bex, who works for Child of Hope, or has done for many years, in Uganda, along with her husband Moses, who's paid a price and is paying a price today for being a disciple of Jesus. I remember a day when I asked myself, what does it ever cost me to be a disciple? Am I a true follower of Jesus? And what price would I pay to follow him? It was a time when we thought God might be calling us to move, to live and work amongst another group of people here in Dorset. We'd had our house on the market to sell with the intention of buying another home in the new location. After 3 house sale deals fell through, we had to consider whether we would be willing to move anyway if this was what God wanted us to do. Should we let our home and rent one in the new location, perhaps losing all the equity that we had built up in our home? Well, I agonised over this decision because our family had helped us to get on the housing ladder, and it would have been awkward, to say the least, to explain why we seem now to be throwing it all away. After deciding that it was more important to me to please God than to please my family, I came to the conclusion that I would be willing to let my home go. Shortly after that, God visited Phil in a spiritual encounter, which made our next steps very clear. And as a result of that, we received back, so to speak, the home that we had been willing to sacrifice. It may be that you are currently facing some unique personal challenges of your own on how to be a true follower of Jesus, and whether you would be willing to pay a price to do so. I pray that you will be given the grace to pay the price, to live from godly perspectives and not worldly thinking. I've never regretted my choice to hold on to Jesus no matter what, because he is worth it. There are some challenges that I can guarantee we will all be facing at some time or other in our walk with God, because Jesus will always be aiming to train or discipline us out of his love for us. And two of these challenges we're going to look at now. The first is the challenge to change and to make ourselves ready for him. As I mentioned earlier, the invitation to become a child of God is a free gift. It's open to all, no matter what state you are in, and that is really good news. However, the other side of the coin is that Jesus also told the parable in Matthew 22 about a wedding banquet thrown by a king for his son. The guest list was indiscriminate. Anyone who would accept the invitation could come. But the writer of the gospel says, "But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes and challenged him on why he had not changed." The story ends badly for this guest, and Jesus finishes the parable with this punchline: "For many are invited, but few are chosen." Let's not make the mistake of thinking Jesus was judging the man for not observing some kind of wedding dress code. No, it's about something else. This story is about change. Whether in the light of the generous gift of salvation Jesus has bought for us, we are then willing to change to make ourselves ready to be his partner, his bride, holy and set apart for him. This is one of the reasons we developed the Kingdom Life School, the 1-year programme that is, to provide a means for those who want to change and who want to grow as disciples. To help them work out how they could be true disciples, whatever work or walk of life that they are in. And so if, as you're listening now, you are one of those who'd like to be more intentional about change, this is one way, through being part of Kingdom Life School, that you could take responsibility for your spiritual growth. But let's move on to the second challenge that I'm convinced we will all be facing if we aim to be disciples of Jesus. And that is the challenge to fight for what is right and not be unconcerned. I think that it's entirely possible that in our relatively comfortable society here in the UK, one of the greatest dangers is that we become too comfortable to be willing to fight for what is right and just want to keep our heads down for an easy life. Our daughter Bryony shared with me that in regards to the story in the Bible of Sodom, the prophet Ezekiel explained that it perhaps wasn't the obvious that brought judgment and downfall to that place. It's written, "Now this was the sin of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters were arrogant, overfed, and unconcerned. They did not help the poor and needy." This clearly reveals that being unconcerned is unacceptable in God's eyes. Jesus was not afraid to confront hypocrisy, injustice, to associate with the least and the lowest, to let himself feel the pain of others and to do something about it. If we are to be true disciples, we need to be ready to follow his example even when it costs. During a recent online prayer session, I was struck by the words of William Booth, the founder of the Salvation Army, who said, "While women weep, while men go to prison," I'm sorry, I've missed a bit there, let me say that again. "While women weep as they do now, I'll fight. While children grow hungry as they do now, I'll fight. While men go to prison in and out as they do now, I'll fight. While there is a drunkard left, while there is a poor lost girl upon the streets, while there remains one dark soul without the light of God, I'll fight. I'll fight to the very end." Let's ask ourselves, what am I willing to fight for? Maybe we, the church that is, need to get our fight back for some of the things that God wants us to show his concern for. We should be concerned about what he is concerned about. Let's get our fight back. If you haven't yet had the chance to tune into Tim's Tuesday night Bible study, I really encourage you to do so if you can get a few moments, because he's got some great things to say there on the subject of being willing to be concerned for others. And so I'd like to finish this short talk about discipleship with a prayer that we would be willing to accept the challenge to change, and that the sin of being unconcerned would not be found in us. To do this, I'd like to use the lyrics of a song by Andy Grammer. The song's called "Don't Give Up on Me." And I'd like to use these lyrics as my prayer. I will fight. I will fight for you. I always do, until my heart is black and blue. And I will stay with you. We'll make it to the other side, like lovers do. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours to interlock. I'll wait for you. I'll wait for you, 'cause I'm not giving up. I'm not giving up, no, not yet. Even when I'm down to my last breath, even when they say there's nothing left. So don't give up on, I'm not giving up, no, not me. even when nobody else believes. I'm not going down that easily. So don't give up on me. And I will hold. I'll hold on to you. No matter what this world will throw, it won't shake me loose. I'll reach my hands out in the dark and wait for yours to interlock. I'll wait for you. I'll fight for you. Amen.
Well, thank you, Heather, for bringing that word on what it means to be a true disciple. While we're on the subject of that, I'd like to recommend to you a Bible study that Tim Applin brought earlier this week, which is up on our YouTube channel, and is really on point for the times that we're in and the questions we're asking ourselves. So if you haven't seen that, go and have a look. It's really, really good. We're going to close the meeting soon, but I'd like to reiterate, if you'd like help with absolutely anything, please don't hesitate to get in touch with us. You can contact us through Facebook, through Instagram, through email, or directly through our website. All of the details are on our website, thelighthouse.org.uk. And also, if you would like to give to the Lighthouse, again, you can find out all the details of how to go about that, either through internet banking or PayPal, or just in the post on our website, thelighthouse.org.uk/giving. I'd like to encourage you to stay tuned for Debs' dynamic demo today. It's going to be a good one, and I am reliably informed there is fire involved. But other than that, I bless you to have a good week and to really experience the blessing and favour of God in your lives as you go through this week.
Hi everyone, I hope you've all had a good week and this change in weather hasn't upset your plans too much. This week we're back on our journey through John, and we've reached the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000 with a little boy's lunch. Now it's important to remember that 5,000 men were counted, so there would have been women and children included as well. So we could just maybe imagine that there could have been around 25,000 people that were actually fed by the little boy's lunch. So something really small and insignificant had a big impact on people that day. So I just want to do an experiment this week with you, which shows how with something small, just a few simple ingredients, that we can make something amazing. And if we can do that, then just think how incredible the things will be that Jesus will create out of what we bring to him, whether that be money, food, gifts. Jesus can multiply whatever we bring to him. So what I have here in my little cup here, I've got 1 teaspoon of bicarbonate soda and 4 teaspoons of sugar. So I will take my lighter fluid first, and I'm going to make sure that this is very well soaked with lighter fluid. Now this is an experiment for parents to do, not kids, but kids it's great to watch. Okay, so I've got a nice lot of lighter fluid on there, and then I'm going to put my sugar and bicarbonate of soda in that little well in the middle. That should do. Okay, this is the exciting bit, kids. This is where we liked it. Wow. Okay. Now it takes a little while to get going, but can you see that there's a chemical reaction going on there? So wasn't that amazing? Just from a small amount of sugar and bicarb, we created this amazing mass. Now remember guys, this is one for parents to do and children to watch. I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.